Huh? Dig. Huh? Huh? Dirt.
Hey now, and welcome down to KC Toy Reviews. You're probably wondering why I sound like this. Well, because I am extremely next level disappointed. I have been waiting for Bo-Katan from the Mandalorian for a long time, and on top of that, I am a massive Katee Sackhoff fan. And my figure, unfortunately, was shipped in with a defect, which makes me super duper sad. So, as always, let's hold each other's hands and dive right the hell goddamn in. Woe is me. Woe is me. Play a violin for KC, because I am very, very disappointed. And again, you're probably asking yourself, what happened? What happened, KC? And I'll tell you what happened. I couldn't get the goddamn wrist pegs out of the hands. And to get a little bit more specific, if you're familiar with wrist pegs, they are actually put together in two pieces. As I pulled, whether it was this hand or that hand, the two pieces split every single time. And I might as well show you. Let me just show you what the hell this thing's doing. So half of the wrist peg is staying in there, and the other half is staying in the hand. And no matter how much I tug at this and try to get like a light pair of pliers to pull at this, I am screwed. I cannot switch hands. So with that little tantrum out of the way, and that said, just be fair warned, this is probably going to be a little bit more boring of a video because there's not many stances and poses I can do with her without moving her hands. I can't put the guns in her hands, and then on top of that, let's just get it out of the way. The elbows, they're single jointed. I mean, what the hell, Hot Toys? We're talking about a $250 figure with single jointed elbows and hands that I can't even unplug properly? Now, I'll admit it's probably just a defect on mine. Sideshow will most likely take care of me, and other people aren't having the same problems, but I just need to stress again, extremely cry-worthy disappointed. Katee Sackhoff is one of the most stellar actresses out there. I watched Battlestar Galactica for every single season, and she was one of the best characters. Lo and behold, she joins The Mandalorian, and I am super excited that she is portraying one of the coolest characters, Bo-Katan. And then pair that with Hot Toys announcing a 1/6 scale version of this, I was ecstatic. So when this thing came in, I couldn't switch out the hands, and I found out that it was single jointed elbows. I could have cried. So unfortunately, I'm going to be honest, I'm probably going to breeze through this one today because I am so sad. This is probably the first figure in over 10 years that I have had from Hot Toys that is this defective. And you might be saying, well, don't be a baby, but I mean, take a look at this thing through the camera. It is absolutely frustratingly amazing. And why frustrating? Because I can't switch out the goddamn hands and she has single jointed elbows. Put those two things aside and look at the goddamn fantastic layers. We have a little bit of pleather in there, we have cloth, we have sculpted armor, we had weathering from the helmet all the way down to the feet. The gun holsters firmly hold those guns, and the paint application is goddamn stellar. And I'm not sure if anybody else is celebrating the fact that we have a female version of a Mandalorian finally in our goddamn hands. And I was so excited for this figure. And I mean, I'm still excited. I think I'll be taken care of. And hopefully this isn't a known defect where it's hard to get the hands off. But man, this thing looks next level cool. I just cannot stress enough. The camera doesn't do it justice. When you have it in hand, you just feel the layers and the contrast. And the customized body that they have underneath feels incredible. The belt just has all these little pouches on it. And if you can see all just the hemlines, the way the tailoring's done, the little patches that are on top of patches, on top of patches, on top of the armor, on top of the armor, under the armor, on top of the armor, and the patches and the armor and the leather and the cloth, it just looks in freaking sane. And call me biased because I am such a fan of both the actress and the character portrayed. And on top of that, Hot Toys is the best of the best. So we have a stellar figure in front of us. I'm just crossing my fingers that the only thing I need to fret about is the single jointed elbows. And there we have the extent of the articulation on our elbows, a pretty straightforward 90-degree bend there. And I'm very surprised with a cloth overlay that Hot Toys didn't go with a double jointed elbow. It just makes no sense and a huge missed opportunity. I'm not a fan of actual face head sculpts. I think most of them are pretty awful. I mean, let's be honest. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, there's a really great likeness of Katie Sackhoff here. I mean, it's okay. It's maybe like a 6.1 or 6.2 as far as likeness of the actual actress. As far as a human goes, it has a nice glisten to the eyes, fantastic paint application. You can see a nice skin tone, actual little tiny little dots and stuff there. So just really, really great head sculpt. Again, just likeness of the actual actress. It's okay. It's not horrible, but it's just, it's not 100% there. And it's pretty far off, unfortunately. On top of that, I'm one of those guys, like, who the hell would portray it and put it on your shelf with a head sculpt like this versus this badass helmet? I mean, the helmet is freaking amazing. Again, because this is a mold of a female, the helmet has a slightly different shape, in my opinion. Weathering throughout it, just amazing details. And it just sits really, really nicely on top of the body. The proportions and everything are absolutely stellar. And just a quick side-by-side with a Death Watch Mandalorian, we can quickly see that the body and the frame is vastly different, very skinny, and overall I think the proportions next to the Death Watch Mandalorian are fantastic, and of course both of these guys next to each other are an absolute complement to one another. I would say one last note is that the details on Bo-Katan compared to the Death Watch Mandalorian are insanely different. Bo-Katan's armor is a little bit finely more detailed, the weathering is a little bit better, and the paint application is slightly better in my opinion. Yes, the Death Watch are more of a copy and paste, a bunch of them, kind of a trooper-ish feel. But man, when these two are side by side, Bo-Katan really, really stands out as the winner between the two. Now, as far as the stand goes, I mean, I think it's pretty fantastic looking. It's a very average Hot Toy stand back here. Now, the only kind of disappointing thing is this thing just basically sits in front. It, again, looks pretty cool, and you can put this in the front or the back. The only disappointing piece, in my opinion, is that it should have magnetized or clipped on here properly. They really should have added just a few magnets where it just helped it feel a little bit more firmly and snug on there. But because of that, again, you can't put it there. You can put it on the back. There's a couple different places you can put it. I just really, really wish that they added some magnets to keep it in place a little bit more proper. However, with that said, like I mentioned, it looks pretty awesome. It stands out slightly different than the other stands because we do have this kind of railing piece, which is supposed to represent the spaceship heist scene or whatever the hell we want to call that when they stole the Imperial ship there. And then, of course, if you see in the unboxing video, we do have the atrociously kind of blurry painted backdrop that it comes with. I'm pretty surprised in the quality of that thing. I don't know what the hell they were smoking when they released that thing. But hey, it's included, and you can't put it behind this and make this look a little bit like it's ripped from that scene straight from The Mandalorian. The only next disappointing part is I am a very big fan of crotch grabbers. I think the waist grabber, especially on a figure like this, when she has all this stuff around her waist. I mean, look at all the stuff around her waist, and you're going to give us a crotch grabber? I mean, what do you want it to do? Smash all the pouches and everything around her waist, Hot Toys? It's a little perplexing of a choice that you do not give us options. I'm going to say it again. I know that I've gotten figures in the past where there was an option to switch out the crotch grabber and put a dynamic waist grabber, and you can kind of go back and forth. Because I get it for pictures, but for longevity, it makes no sense to only give us the option of a waist grabber. It's just a little bit perplexing to get a waist grabber on a figure like this that has all this crazy amount of stuff around her waist to begin with. It truly is like a game of operation, but in the end, the figure is going to lose and get more damage than anybody. I mean, I go pretty fast over the accessories. I mean, you have these obvious fire things that are for the backpack on her back, which I will show off in the next scene. And then we have this little blade that you can put on one of her wrist piece. And then lastly, this little white-black thing, which is most likely some type of transponder or communication device. But as I always say, it could be a bomb. You never know. It always could be a bomb. and one of her 2 blasters. I mean, this thing just looks goddamn awesome. But man, these 2 blasters are badass. Nice paint application, good contrast, a few different colors and gradient throughout it, and it has a little bit of weight to it, so it's just a kind of a nice casting job to this thing. I'm just very, very pleased with these 2 blasters. Now, if you've ever owned a Boba Fett or anything like that, you are very used to the way Hot Toys releases these things and the backpacks, and you always need to install them. Sometimes they're magnetic, and sometimes there's these little absurd clips you actually need to get in there. And whether it's a good or bad thing, this thing is just... Oh! And we'll try that again. And whether it's a good or bad thing, this one's actually sculpted and kind of imprinted on the figure itself, so it does not seem to be removable. And just a quick note, as I showed the little flames earlier, you can kind of just plug these into the back here if you want to show her blasting off. You do have that option, and paired with the dynamic stand, leaves a few awesome possibilities. And then lastly, I just wanted to show off the boots here. Amazing with the shin guard. You kind of have a pleather-ish look with these wraparound bands, and then it sits all on top of a sculpted, articulated boot here. So you have nice articulation and just this really nice, beefy contrast boot that sits on top. I just can't stress enough. It really, really looks cool. It's almost one of those things in person. It looks better, but I just wanted to show that off. They've done a really, really stellar job, all while leaving some great articulation still possible. And as I've mentioned 100 times, really great weathering from the kneecaps all the way down to the shin guards here. Could have used a little bit at the tip of the feet. You know, I've seen some figures that have done that before, but it's nothing that I'm going to gripe on too much because of how great it looks. And there we have it. Bo-Katan by Hot Toys from the goddamn fantastic Star Wars show, The Mandalorian on Disney+. Super stoked for Season 3, especially for the role that Bo-Katan is about to play. Whether that be bad or good, I am very excited to see where that character arc goes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, very sorry, it is a one pose show today because I cannot remove those goddamn hands. Very disappointed and hope nobody else has to deal with the same issues that I did. The only issue that I can foresee you having to deal with is a single jointed elbow, which, I mean, yes, it's super disappointing, but you can still pull off some decent poses. Overall, the armor, the way it's layered, the contrast from head to toe is next level stellar. It looks borderline real, and especially depending on your photography skills, you can get some killer photos with this figure. As we saw, it has a nice female frame, especially when put next to a male. The proportions looked just right between one another, all while still looking badass, menacing, in a character that you would not want to mess with. The helmet alone is a standout piece on this thing. Slightly different shape and feel to it, but the paint application, the artistic look, and the way it feels and the way it looks overall is absolutely insane. We have cloth, we have leather, we have hard plastic, and everything in between. This thing is craftsmanship to the next level. Just very disappointed with the single jointed elbows. The pouches, the gun holders, all the accessories, everything is really, really great. I might not be a huge fan of the Katie Sackhoff head sculpt that came with it, but if you did want to have a pose with her with the head sculpt and then her holding a helmet, there are a few possibilities. I think you're crazy to not have this on the shelf with her Mandalorian helmet, but as I've said a couple times, whatever tickles your fancy, go for it. No matter what, you will not be disappointed unless, like me, you can't get the goddamn hands out of the pegs. So, with all that said, as we swing this into a score, it's a tough one because I'm going to go ahead and assume that not everybody had the atrocious peg system debacle that I had. So I'm going to slightly ignore that, unfortunately. And the reason I say unfortunately is because I'm crossing my fingers. It is not a known issue. So, ignoring the peg system, assuming that the next figure I get in the swap out is not going to have that problem, and really only honing in on a single jointed elbow as the main issue on this figure, I think I would land at an 8.9 out of 10. Had this had double jointed elbows on it, I think it could have been a 9.3 or higher. We are talking about a stellar piece from top to bottom. Like I said, from the tailoring to the paint application to the proportions, this thing is freaking amazing. A female Mandalorian opens up the window to more options and more contrast, more shelf presence, and on top of all that, she's portrayed by Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica, aka one of the best series/shows of all time. So, with all that said, and an 8.9 out of 10, yeah, I would suggest it, and just crossing my fingers that I am not suggesting a figure that comes in with hand and joint problems just like mine. And with tons more versions of the Mandalorians coming out, and Season 3, which opens up an insane amount of possibilities and varieties, I am very excited to have this piece on my shelf. So that's going to be it here for us today at KC Toy Reviews, with an 8.9 out of 10. Katie Sackhoff, The Mandalorian, you can't goddamn go wrong. Battlestar Galactica, go frack yourself!
Huh?